Welcome to the Empire Podcast, brought to you this week by MCM Comic Con. Running from 26th to 28th of May, the MCM Comic Con is one of the UK's biggest pop culture events, and you can purchase your tickets now at mcmcomiccon.com. Try saying that one really fast. On the Empire Podcast this week, we dive headfirst into Alien Covenant, audition for a role in Guy Ritchie's Aladdin, and engage in a little chest-burster chat with Danny McBride. This and more on the movie podcast that has not only been deserted by Chris Hewitt and abandoned by Helen O'Hara, both of whom apparently have better things to do, but even Phil de Semlin has buggered off without turning the stove off, leaving me, James Dyer, enemy of fun, nemesis of Stan Lee, scourge of Carpathia, and sorrow of Moldavia to take the driving seat. Joining me on this express elevator to hell are two other crew members from the good ship Empire, both of whom sit across from me with looks of deep trepidation on their terrified faces. First, we have a man who reinforces every negative conception you ever had about London cyclists. It is sickeningly entitled millennial John Nugent.
Hello.
How are you, John?
I'm fine, thank you.
Are you feeling good about this particular podcast?
Yes. Yeah, no, I'm feeling very happy.
I think there's an even chance you get out of this one alive. John, I think we can all agree, is the kind of slightly no-mark support band to this particular event. Headlining this week's podcast, however, is the main event. She is the editor-in-chief of Empire, first of her name, the unburnt, queen of the Andals, and of the Roynar, and of the First Men, Khaleesi of Great Grass Sea, breaker of chains, and mother of dragons. She is, of course, Terry of the House White.
James Dyer, can I just pick up on looking at you with trepidation? I'm normally looking at you with disdain and sometimes thinking, what a bellend. But if you see trepidation, then I would hate to argue with you.
Do you think that was too much, that intro? Was that good? Do you feel special?
I feel really special, really, really special. And if you mean 10% of it, then you have secured a place in my heart for all of eternity.
I am going to address you like that every single time you come into the office.
Please do.
What have you been up to this week, Terry?
Well, James Dyer, John Nugent, what's happened this week? Has anything happened this week? Have we, for example, moved office from London's bustling Soho to London's slightly terrifying, especially in your case, James Dyer, because you seem to think it's 1997 and they're selling cannabis on street corners. London's Camden.
Yeah, we have left the cosy embrace of London's Covent Garden behind and come to the crusty charms of Camden Town. And if I see another fucking dreadlock, I cannot be held responsible for my actions.
It's been challenging, I think. And the only thing that's making me happy is we are like 4 doors down from a burger restaurant, Fat Burger. There are other burgers available in London. However, this one is the one closest to us, and I've had 4 in the last 2 days. So I may need to get a new byline picture done for my editor's letter, which is me kind of double the size I am now.
Sort of a Jabba-esque.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's handy for my bongs.
Yeah.
I can go and pick up my cannabis paraphernalia on a daily basis.
I went looking for a can of Coke at lunchtime. I was trying to find a newsagent, and I've discovered that trying to get caffeinated is problematic. If you want to get tattooed or pierced, you've got no problems at all. But apparently looking for a snack is too much to ask.
Yes.
But
come on, there's like a French cafe on the corner. I went in the other day. It sells tiny coffees for £3. So much so that I had to order 2 because I was like, these aren't big enough. And the woman looked at me like I was a heathen and then charged me £10 for 2 coffees and a pastry. So I think you mock it too much.
Sounds a little bit like you crossed the border into Primrose Hill there.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
That's where you went wrong.
I know.
Interesting.
Well, yes, we are getting used to our new digs. We're recording the podcast from a new studio this week, so
yeah.
All new.
It's not as grey and lifeless as I'm used to. Quite strange.
It's not. It's special. It's interesting.
Colours in here. It's odd. It's disconcerting.
This is a first. I've never hosted the podcast before. I was hoping to mix things up a little this time. I thought, throw in a quiz, maybe make it more of a panel show. I don't know, like never mind the bell ends or something. I don't know what you want to call it. And but then I realised, everyone will. I mean, they may well unsubscribe anyway, if I'm honest with you. But I thought let's try and keep that to a bare minimum.
We should probably point out before we go on. I mean, Chris and Helen have no excuse, but Phil has a pretty good excuse for not being here this week, right?
He does.
We mention that
He's multiplied.
He has multiplied.
Yes, he's cloned himself.
He is
in the manner of a small child. So a big congratulations to Phil.
Well done on your sperm, Phil. Well done on your sperm.
Yes.
Congratulations on having sex, Phil.
Yes.
Phil de Semlin, I can exclusively reveal, has had sex. So I will say what I've been doing this week. So I spent the entire week watching Netflix, specifically 13 Reasons Why, the depressing teenage suicide drama on Netflix, which has utterly destroyed me. Utterly destroyed me. I've done nothing else all this week. Every night, every commute, I've been watching the show. It is absolutely brutal. Incredibly hard to watch, incredibly harrowing. It's fantastic. Watch it.
Well, we were talking about this, right? And I've seen 2. And I obviously knew everyone knows that there's a suicide, and that's the point. And it's 13 Reasons Why they commit suicide, which, by the way, is anti every kind of conceived wisdom about suicide, which is you clearly can't label it on a person or a specific reason. But for dramatic purposes, that is what is happening.
Excellent framing device.
It is an excellent framing device. But I watched 2 episodes, and I actually really liked it. But I was really busy that week, so instead I just fast-forwarded to the suicide bit.
That is the most you thing that's ever been done.
I know, because I've got no patience and no time, and it's instant gratification. Give it to me now. So I skipped everything, just watched the suicide, and then decided I didn't need to watch the rest of it.
You have to earn that scene. You've got to go through 12 and a half hours of pain before you get to that particular bit.
Before you get to the reward.
Which is the slashy wrist
You're
stuff.
watching it like porn, like you're skipping the...
You're skipping to the money shot.
To the money shot.
Oh, were they talking again? Boring. Feelings.
Oh, my God. So, unless you're Terry and you want to skip straight to the suicide bit, I heartily recommend watching that, but not if you want to be, happy and life affirmed.
See, I'm surprised because I didn't have this down for a James Dyer-esque.
But I'm like the closet teen drama guy. Do you know what I mean? I love
James
my teen stuff.
has the front of an angry middle-aged man, but he is in fact a teenage girl.
Yeah, Helen has often accused me of that. Yeah, it's when I interviewed Anne Hathaway for Interstellar, and she said something about she was going to be in Taming of the Shrew, and I said, 10 Things I Hate About You is one of my favourite teen movies. And she went, yeah, and what are your other favourite teen movies? And I went, well, I'm a big fan of Mean Girls, and obviously I love Clueless. I mean, who doesn't? And then, and I went through the whole list. We went through John Hughes, and she just stared at me slack-jawed. She's like, you weren't kidding, were you? I think she judged me.
You, I think, are the only man... You've read the Twilight books, right?
I have read all of them.
Just because you wanted to?
Well, no, it was partly... I went to Comic-Con the particular year that Twilight, the first one, came out, and the panel was like nothing I'd ever seen, like people screaming at R-Pats and Case Stew, and I kind of felt obliged to find out what it was, so I went straight to a bookshop, and I bought all the books, and I read them back to back.
They're great, right?
Because
I really enjoy... Oh, I mean, it's... What was it that she wrote them whilst listening to... Awful Emo Band.
Oh, almost certainly.
I can't remember which one. Somebody tweet me and tell me, but it was basically Awful Emo Band, had loads of feelings, and she wrote it, and it's so bad that there's some lines, I think it's the one where it's like, you're my own personal brand of heroin. I'm like, I feel like that about boys sometimes.
Do you? I felt like that about ice cream.
Your own personal brand of heroin.
Pretty much.
That is the most James Dyer thing ever.
And on that note, let's stop titting about. We will start, as we are wont to do, with a question. In this case from @Michael C. Snyder, who asks, now that Guardians Volume 2 is out, what are the best opening sequences in films?
Well, I mean, the Guardians 2 opening sequence is brilliant.
It's
magnificent. If you've seen it. As we talk about on the Guardians Galaxy Volume 2 spoiler special podcast, which is out now. I'm
going to say Up. I'm going to throw Up in the ring for the simple reason that Up is, it's 10, 12 minutes, whatever the sort of prologue is, where you see Mr. Fredrickson sort of growing up and him with his wife and stuff. It's very hard for film to make me cry. That makes me cry in less than 10 minutes, which is quite an achievement.
Is that true?
Genuinely. I had tears pouring down my face when I saw that.
I imagine you weeping a lot. I don't know why. I imagine you sat at home mainly weeping. That's kind of the vision in my head.
I do more of that at work, I would say, than at home. But that really gets me every time. And I genuinely believe that if it doesn't, you're a Cylon. I'd
like to say Rocky 2.
Really?
Yeah, so... If everyone remembers, obviously, Rocky ends, no spoilers, but, Rocky ends with Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa, and it's the big fight, and they both kind of knock each other out, and then it's a struggle to get up, pulling up against the ropes before the count of 10, and Rocky wins by, Rocky doesn't win. Apollo Creed wins by the kind of skin of his teeth, but the kind of messages he'd said all the way through, Rocky had, I just want to go the distance. Therefore, he had won. In a nature, he had won. The beginning of Rocky 2 is amazing because they actually replay part of that scene and him pulling himself back up, and then it just continues. And it's this amazing scene as the ambulances kind of speed through Philadelphia. and it's them being wheeled in, and they're like, it's some of the best and worst prosthetics you have ever seen in your entire life. Their faces are hanging off, they've got bruises, they're covered in blood, and it's them both getting operated on and getting kind of pieced, their faces being pieced back together. And there's this amazing moment where Apollo Creed comes into Rocky Balboa's room, and kind of there's a moment of mutual respect as their bodies lay broken and bruised and battered. And I just love it because it basically picks up where the other one left off, but it just starts right in the middle of the action. And that is one of my, anybody who listens to the podcast knows I normally talk about Rocky IV when I'm on, which I've got a lot of time for. But in terms of opening sequences, Rocky II takes it home.
That's a good choice. That's a very good choice. John,
Thanks, James.
Was that patronising enough for you?
Yeah, I'm going to say, can you mansplain just like 20%
more?
Well,
Terry, let me tell you about Rocky and boxing.
Actually, I think you'll find
the beginning is a metaphor for the working classes and their struggle against the oppressive middle. It isn't at all. No. John?
I had Reservoir Dogs. I love how Reservoir Dogs opens. It's quite an obvious choice, perhaps, but, they have that whole talk about tipping. And then it goes into the slow motion sequence with the suits.
Little green bag,
smoking sunglasses.
It's very good because that's the Tarantino scene that kind of put him on the map for a lot of people, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, his particular brand of kind of fizz pop culture, rapid fire banter.
Yeah.
That's a lovely, lovely scene. God, there are so many. Where to even start?
Are we talking opening titles or opening sequences?
I think we're talking sequences. So if you were Bond, it would be pre.
It'd be the cold
and if we're going
to
say Bond, I'm throwing GoldenEye in there. That is my favourite Bond.
That's a great
pre-credit thing.
Yeah.
For the bungee jump, for the Brosnan,
and you
who was
don't
new
really
to the role.
see his face the entire time. It's all sort of.
And for Sean Bean's brilliant accent, finish the job, James. For England, James.
Send them all to hell.
I mean, Jesus. But no, I love that. I like the Casino Royale kind of black and white hit one. That's the assassination. That's nice.
The best one, of course, is The Spy Who Loved Me, as reenacted by Alan Partridge.
Well, obviously.
Skiing down the ski slope pursued by baddies, and then he does a little backflip. I'm not sure why, but it's definitely not showing off.
What about Baby Driver, which we all saw last week?
We did.
Without giving too much away, I think we've all been quite vocal on social media about how much we liked it. Official Empire review not in yet, but it's fair to say that opening sequence is one of the best things I've seen on screen this year.
It starts with some driving. I don't think that's a spoiler to say.
I think that a character called Baby and he's driving. The film is called Baby Driver and the opening sequence is something else entirely.
# spoilers.
That's not a spoiler.
Joking. I'm going to get Mission Impossible 3. Which, as you all know, is my favourite Mission Impossible, despite what you all say. Because it's that interrogation scene, isn't it? It's Hoffman talking to Ethan Hunt and then obviously killing, in inverted commas, Michelle Monaghan. And Hoffman is absolutely terrifying in that film. But to drop you right in his lap at that point and see him in full flow, I think is incredibly powerful. I love that. And that's really good. Also, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Big fan of the kind of River Phoenix young indie thing. Better than every young Indiana Jones episode combined. It's got the snakes gag. It's got the whip scar on the chin gag. It's got Fedora in it. I mean, it's just lovely. It's a lovely little one.
And also the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, that opening sequence with that sort of Busby Berkeley style musical, which is as good as any musical from the 30s or 40s you'll ever see.
That's a good shout.
I really like, from recently, Nocturnal Animals, Tom Ford.
I've not seen that.
It's quite... it just sticks in your memory. It's just basically a montage of nude, obese women jiggling around with glitter floating everywhere.
Enough about your Saturday night, John.
Because James is suddenly very interested in seeing this film.
Saying, yes. Gold Member, that cameo-filled... it's Tom Cruise, Kevin Spacey.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Is it Danny DeVito? Gwyneth Paltrow. The Austin Pussy thing. Yes. That scene of Spielberg. That's.
I really love DeVito in that.
Isn't it?
Hey, I'm Mini-Me!
What was that?
I don't know.
That's my DeVito.
It's almost certainly racist. Let's move on from that. I'm going to throw in Social Network because it's Aaron Sorkin, obviously, and that's one of the great dumping scenes for me. And also established Rooney Mara, which is nice. And also Children of Men with the exploding coffee shop, because that's one shot. It's that shaky handheld shot. I can't remember how many minutes it is, but it's got the baby Diego's dead and then the coffee shop blows up. And if we're talking tracking shots, or if we're talking continuous shots, we could probably talk about the player as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Any others? Or have we thoroughly abused that? Dark Knight, Scream, Goodfellas, Matrix, Trainspotting, Lust for Life.
Yes.
So many. As ever, if you want to hear three of us ramble incoherently for 10 minutes while in no way answering your question, do tweet us using the hashtag Empire Podcast or email us at podcast@empiremagazine.com. We're also on Facebook using the terribly clever handle Empire Magazine. Right, now that's out the way. Should we have some news? Let's have some news.
Yes.
What has been happening on the interweb this week? Educate me.
Oh, so much, actually. Quite a busy week for news. There's been lots of trailers.
There have, which is always, as we say, great to talk about on the radio, but let's do it anyway. There's been Blade Runner 2049, which is arguably the most exciting trailer this week, I would say.
It was incredible.
Wasn't it?
It's just incredible.
Wasn't it?
And I think everybody's been pretty nervous, it's fair to say. When we first saw the glimpse, any kind of stills that were released in the US, it was, you're always nervous when it's something like this, which everybody loves so much and is such a kind of an iconic film, but just visually has such a distinct, that kind of dystopian vision that was created was so remarkable and so iconic and so memorable. And, it's always that thing of don't fucking ruin it, which is essentially in your gut is all you're really saying is please don't ruin it, please don't ruin it, please don't ruin it. And obviously, Blade Runner 2049, the trailer came out and just visually, I just thought it was remarkable, rich, kind of had taken it on without completely reinventing it. So it felt weirdly fresh and exciting, but still had a real consistency of vision and really... And really kind of, you felt the echoes back to the original film, but it didn't in any way feel like derivative of that at all. Goz looked cool as fuck, right?
Love his coat. I want his coat.
He looked amazing. He looked amazing. And I was initially not that jazzed about that casting, right? Because I think he's really pretty. Do I want somebody that pretty in a Blade Runner film? I wasn't entirely convinced. The Goz does a certain thing for me, not that thing that you're thinking of. The Goz does a certain thing for me, and I wasn't sure that I wanted him in Blade Runner and in this dystopian kind of vision that had been created. But I thought he looked amazing, and it got me really, really excited for the film, actually.
Compare Goz's coat to Harrison Ford's Primark grey T-shirt.
I love the way you call it Primark.
Primark. I was like, what?
That's like Primarché.
What is it?
Primani.
What's
It's Primark, innit?
Yeah, Primark.
Fucking hell.
Is that a definite? Is that like confirmed canon? That's how you pronounce it.
Yes.
I'm pretty certain Primark is canon.
I think where I come from, it's Primark.
Where?
You got to shop at Primark, then pick up your prescription from Butts. This is what happens in the
Also,
Negan
Jared
household.
Leto. I thought he was like just
Yes.
that moment in the trailer with him when he opens his eyes. And for somebody, please watch the trailer because otherwise
just
this means
watch it, 'cause
nothing
this
to
is
you.
ridiculous.
Took my breath away.
So it seems like Jared Leto's playing like a replicant factory owner or
Yes.
something in the most amazing looking factory you've ever seen. I mean, this is not like an industrial warehouse. This is like a giant yellow hall the size of a cathedral or
It's
something.
not unlike our new Camden office, if I'm honest with you. I love it. I love that it's still got that kind of 80s vision of what the future is,
Right.
and just the music has that, Vangelis-y vibe to it. I mean, everything about it's fantastic. Denis Villeneuve can frankly do no wrong, regardless. So.
Roger Deakins should win his Oscar for this.
Well, let's hope.
The cinematography is astonishing.
So yeah, if you haven't watched the trailer, we've basically ruined it for you. But go and see it. It is fantastic. Other trailers this week, there was The Gifted, wasn't there, which is the X-Men TV series, which was a very short trailer. Which isn't. I mean, someone magics or mutants some crisps out of a vending machine. That's pretty much the high point. I'm sure the show will be great, but that didn't show me an awful lot.
It looks interesting. I mean, it's got its work cut out to be better than Legion, which was pretty amazing. But it looks interesting. We've got Bryan Singer directing the pilot, I think. So so that's a good thing.
That does bode
good
well.
Continuation from the film franchise.
Yeah.
It left me cold.
Did it?
I hate to be the voice of negativity, but yeah,
That's
I
fair.
saw it and I was like, it left me cold and dead inside, even more so than I usually am. So I'm desperate to see a little bit more to try and get more of a sense of actually the scale and the kind of ambition of this. But my flame is unlit.
How did you feel about The Mist?
My
Did you watch-
metaphorical flame?
Your metaphorical.
My metaphorical flame is unlit.
How was your flame when you saw? Did you see the Mist trailer?
That was terrifying.
Yeah, it's really bloody, isn't it?
Yeah,
Very
I
gory.
loved it.
It's just
That's what I want from a trailer.
blood, gore,
Yes.
torture, murder.
Shock me.
Mist.
Missed.
I'm excited by that. I really want to see it, but I just can't see a world in which it's better than the film.
No,
Because the
that's
film
a
is
big ask.
incredibly good, and just I genuinely think that has the most devastating ending of any film ever made. So
Yes.
I remember seeing that and just wandering the streets. I mean, much like I often do, just looking, nihilistic and miserable. But in particular, having seen that one. What else was there? Oh, It. Yes, I was trying to say It this week.
Yeah.
It, the film that sends the internet into meltdown. It's...
That looks pretty scary too, to be honest.
It does. I really, really want to see that. But I love the TV, like the Tim Curry TV one so much. I'm a little concerned that I won't feel as attached to this one. I don't know. Maybe I will.
It's got weird, lovely, like 80s kind of Stranger Things kind of vibe. But it is genuinely terrifying, everything we've seen so far. And it's funny. It gets you thinking, what is with clowns? It's one of the great questions of the day. Clowns are inherently terrifying. And I was trying to unpick, we used to watch the 80s one, when we were kids growing up, we used to watch it quite a lot. And me and my brother were always like absolutely, genuinely terrified of clowns after that. And I was like, are we as human beings born with a fear of clowns, or does it come from pop culture? Or is there something inherently scary about clowns?
I wonder whether, well, certainly for me, it's the contrast between, it's the painted-on smile forced into a grimace. Do you know what I mean? It's the contradiction there. Like, I always remember in Poltergeist, the thing that terrified me was the expression on that toy clown's face when it attacks him, and I used to fast forward through that bit because it freaked me out. And I think that's what it was, because it's that almost twisted rictus grin.
Well, it's funny because I'm reading, as you know, because you bought it for me when I was in a mood, I'm reading The Crow at the moment, because we were talking about the film The Crow, which I love. And I started reading, James bought me the comic book.
James O'Barr's graphic novel, yes, the original one.
You did. And I was reading it on the train this morning, and I was thinking about that exact thing, which is the comic book is so... I was like in tears on the overground this morning to work. And it's that contrast between, obviously, he's painted on this joyful smile, which is presumably some echo back to when he was happy. And it's some of the most heartbreaking and devastating text I've ever read. Yeah. And it's that contrast between the very public face, and not a metaphorical public face, a literal public face.
This tells you a lot about me, that when Terry's in a bad mood, I'll buy her what is arguably the most depressing graphic novel ever written.
Is this the first goth episode of the Empire Podcast?
Yeah, I am in full emo gear as we speak. It's true. Well, let's liven things up a bit. Guy Ritchie wants you, John, to be Aladdin.
Me?
Yes, you personally should be Aladdin.
Well, I don't know that he does.
I think he does.
For a start, okay, so he's got an open casting call. This is what you're referring to.
I am.
I don't think I meet the criteria on a number of reasons.
Are you about to be racist?
Oh, I didn't laugh then.
No, I'm about to not be racist. I'm about to point out the lack of racism here, because they've got a casting call for a Middle Eastern actor.
And you're telling me that cultural appropriation is beyond you?
Yeah, I'm trying
Fair
to.
enough.
It's a worldwide casting call. There's an open audition on Saturday in London, and then it's going around the world. And they have specified that they want a Middle Eastern actor, which is a good thing in this age of whitewashing controversies, that there is something where they are casting to type, and they are, not looking to have a racist casting.
No, they're looking for an 18 to 22-year-old Middle Eastern who can sing and dance.
Yes. Well,
you don't qualify on any level.
I'm older, I'm white, and I can neither sing nor
dance. But other than that, if anyone does fit that particular description, open casting in the UK is on the 14th at the Old College Building, formerly the Cochrane Theatre, in Holborn, London, between 10 and 3 p.m. So.
And please, if you go, please share it with us on social media.
Oh, God, do that, please.
Please.
And if you go, can you ask Guy Ritchie why?
Yeah, please do
End
that
of
and
question.
film it. Facebook Live that. Yes. Tell us exactly what happened there. Also, and I have to throw this out there, so Emily Blunt has apparently, and I say been confirmed, she's been essentially name-dropped by Doug Liman to appear in the Edge of Tomorrow sequel. Now, that in itself, Tom Cruise is potentially going to be in it. She's potentially going to be in it. Neither of those things are earth-shattering, except he refers to the film as Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat, which is arguably the worst name for a sequel ever.
It can't be called that. Come
Bear in
on.
mind, this is a film that was called All You Need Is Kill, and then renamed to Edge of Tomorrow. And we talked about this on the podcast before. It was retconned to be called Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow, because Live, Die, Repeat was that's the tagline they used on the posters.
Yeah.
So now it's gone. It's become Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow, and the sequel will be Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I made up that bit.
Well, the Live, Die, Repeat bit was added in like the DVD release, right?
It was,
like they assumed that was more marketable than the actual title. I just
Why?
I don't
Ladies and
understand.
gentlemen, marketing.
Yeah. There's no logic to that.
That's
that
a
at all.
marketing in full meltdown, isn't it? That's just
Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat.
yeah.
It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. It sort of gets lost on your tongue and then explodes somewhere, like halfway up your tongue.
It's
I don't
not
know.
great.
It's not good. I mean, this is taken from an interview with Doug Liman,
Yes,
right? So
you might have been joking.
Yes.
it's surely an offhand comment, and I would imagine that's not the official confirmed final title.
And even if it is, it'll change 5 times before it actually comes
Right.
out. So, there's that.
I liked All You Need Is Killed. That was a great title.
Yeah, well, that's the graphic novel's title, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, presumably the translation of the graphic novel's title. But, I like that. I mean, none of them make any sense.
No, and I think Emily Blunt had spoken before and said she didn't see what was wrong with just that.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it seems kind of like nonsense.
Because what Edge of Tomorrow? That
What does
means
that
so
even
bland.
mean?
It's so bland.
Isn't the Edge of Tomorrow like today?
Well, it's just...
The Edge of Tomorrow's like, what, midnight?
What is it? The edge. I mean, what's an edge? Is it the side edge, the front edge, the leading edge, the back edge, the top edge?
What?
I don't think it has physical dimensions. We've turned into a physics seminar. Let's move on to Hellboy. Guillermo del Toro announced recently, and we talked about it here, that Hellboy was dead. And Ron Perlman was very upset, and they were not doing any more Hellboys. Turns out he was partly right. Hellboy is coming back, potentially with Neil Marshall directing, which is an interesting development. And David Harbour, aka the Sheriff in Stranger Things, might be taking the lead. Apparently this has Mike Mignola's blessing as well. So
It's confusing though, isn't it? I don't understand why, because Guillermo del Toro, as recently as I think earlier this year, put out a tweet on Twitter saying, would you like to see Hellboy 3? And he put a poll and he said something like, if it gets so many votes, then he will take it to the studio and have a conversation with Ron Perlman. And it got that many votes and he had that conversation and it didn't go any further. And you wonder why. Why? And now they're pressing ahead with a different director. And it's strange. There's obviously something that we're not hearing about here. There's some sort of studio politics. But I think there is a well of opinion who would like to see that third Del Toro Perlman movie.
I don't know if you remember, the studio originally wanted Vin Diesel for Hellboy.
Really?
And Guillermo insisted. Guillermo said it's Ron Perlman. The studio went, well, we want to look at Vin Diesel. And Guillermo was like, it's Ron Perlman. But there was a point where Vin Diesel was considering. I spoke to him about it, actually, because when he was doing publicity for original Fast and Furious, that's when he was toying with the idea. But I don't think Guillermo would ever have made it with him.
That would have been terrible.
Oh, it would have been absolutely awful. Yeah.
Absolutely terrible.
Big Hellboy just talking about his family.
Any other news, John? What have we got?
I've got some news which is pertinent to me and possibly no one else. But I'm quite excited about this. So there is a remake of Suspiria, the classic Dario Argento horror movie, in the works. Luca Guadagnino is directing the remake. He directed A Bigger Splash from last year. It's been shot. It's currently in post-production. And the news has arrived that Tom York, the lead singer of Radiohead, is going to be doing the soundtrack, which is very exciting news for someone as both a Dario Argento fan and a Radiohead fan like myself.
So if the film wasn't going to be sort of nihilistic and depressing beforehand, now we've pretty much assured it.
It's going to be brilliant. I mean, just the original Suspiria is famous for that sort of really disturbing, bleak, synthy goblin soundtrack. And if anyone can do weird, disturbing, bleepy synth soundtrack, it's Tom York. So I'm thrilled about the news. I mean, we don't really need remakes, but if there has to be remakes, then this seems like a good team. Tilda Swinton is in this one, Chloe Grace Moretz and Dakota Johnson. It's basically about witches and there's blood. It's great. I'm looking forward to this now.
Witches, blood and Radiohead. What more could we wish for?
Exactly. Beep, 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 beep. Witches, blood, Radiohead.
That was uncanny.
Just a little preview.
Please, I beg you never to do that again. For the sake of our clearly now dwindling subscriber base to this podcast, please never do that again.
James, some more news.
Yes.
So there has been a Deadpool animated series ordered by FFX in the States, 10 episodes. And it's actually the talent attached to it, the showrunners attached to it are really, really exciting. So it's Donald Glover, who's obviously the creator and the EP of Atlanta, and Stephen Glover as writer. And I mean, here's the thing, right, about Deadpool is, for me, Deadpool is Ryan Reynolds, right? Especially the movie was massive. He's just started making Deadpool 2. This is, and if you read the Empire cover feature at the time of release of Deadpool, you will know that this is Ryan Reynolds. This is his passion project. It's what he's always wanted to do. He is Deadpool in my mind. So what's interesting is who they choose to voice this, because I think a lot of other people, Deadpool is Ryan Reynolds as well. And I know it's animation, I know it's slightly different, but I think it's really exciting. I think the talent attached to it is really fresh and really exciting, but I think they're going to probably maybe struggle a little bit to move it away from Ryan, especially as Deadpool 2 is currently being made. Yeah. I would be very surprised there wasn't a Deadpool 3. Obviously. And yeah, I think this is really exciting. I think it could be fantastic. But what about Ryan?
Is this kiddie-friendly Deadpool?
No.
It's not?
No.
You can't. I mean, you can't
he's
be
an R-rated
Deadpool.
superhero. How could he be?
Well, you know.
He's a Mac with the mouth. He's full of profanity and sadness and anger, and he has a dark soul. Do kids need that? Do kids need... Yes,
they do.
Yes. Yeah, we know your opinion on parenting.
Yes.
Which is show them the real world.
Darkness. Yes, darkness and nihilism. No, that's exciting.
I mean, they're pushing ahead with a new Spider-Man animated series, and that is separate to the film. So you'd imagine that there is some sort of delineation between
R-rated Spider-Man animated series.
I don't think so, no.
But don't you think, because I think Spidey, for me, Spidey isn't attached to any one particular actor. I think of Spider-Man as people step into the suit and they adopt him essentially for X period of time.
Right, it's like James Bond.
Yeah. Where the character supersedes the actor, but I can't, and maybe it's just me, but I cannot start to unpick Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds.
No, I think at this point, I think any of us can.
No.
So that's an interesting challenge for them. Also in TV news, this was actually broke before last week's podcast, but none of you people decided to discuss it, so I'm bringing it up now. Surprise, surprise, they've decided to do Game of Thrones spin-off series, which they are spitballing at the moment. And this, as someone who has read everything around those books, I think is very exciting.
Well, it's a huge world, isn't it? I mean, there's so many... I'm looking forward to seeing Samuel Tarly's Adventures in the Library.
That would almost certainly happen.
Series.
The Librarian. No, I'd like to see Duncan Egg, which Martin did short stories on. That's Sir Duncan the Tall and his squire Egg, who is also Prince Aegon Targaryen. Okay. That's quite fun. He's done, I think, 3 short stories about that, which is good. The story of Aegon the Conqueror and his dragon, Balerion the Black Dread. That would be quite fun.
Could we see a prequel maybe with the Mad King and everything that happened before?
Absolutely. Well, that would be an interesting one to do, sort of like the Baratheons' rebellion. So Robert Baratheon's were rising up against Aerys and the Mad King himself. That would be interesting. You get Rhaegar in there. That's an interesting period. But it encroaches perhaps a little bit close on this. I mean, it's not too far beforehand because, a lot of the characters from this are in it. Sean Bean can come back, Mark Addy. But I don't know. I'd like to see something completely different. I'd like to see Aegon the Conqueror or something, fun. Someone said, could they do something with, the Night's King, do something in Bravos. It's a huge world. I mean, you only need to go onto a wiki of Ice and Fire to see the kind of length and breadth of it. So I'm very excited about that. I'm also very excited that Judge Dredd is coming back. Yes, Terry's rolling her eyes. This is me. I'm now veering back into fascism. Yes, I'm a massive fan of the Dredd film, the one that Alex Garland wrote. In fact, we talked about it when he was on this very podcast. The new TV series, which is going to be called Judge Dredd Megacity 1, is apparently taking that tone and following those lines. So that's pretty cool. I like Dredd. I think he's great. He should never take his helmet off, and it should be Carl Urban. And I think we can all agree that is true. Yes.
Fans have been sort of clamouring for a sequel to Alex Garland's Dredd for a few years now, and it didn't quite make enough box office for it to justify one, but there's enough stories from the 2000 AD comics
endless
to create all sorts of interesting directions. What I was quite excited about personally as a social media editor is Carl Urban liked our tweets on the news story about it, so that's nice.
Did he? That is interesting.
Yeah.
Also, it's timely, because Dredd himself was a response to Thatcherite Britain, so what better time to bring Dredd back as a response to the current Brexit world we live in.
I'm trying to pay attention, but I could not give less of a fuck.
So you're saying you didn't read 2000 AD? That's what you're telling us.
And I don't know if it's a gender thing. I was vaguely interested for a hot minute when Sly did it. Because, as you know, from my love of Over the Top and the Rocky franchise, I have a bit of a Sylvester Stallone thing going on. So I kind of got half interested at that point. But it just seems silly to me.
How is it silly? Just the concept of
it is
street judges walking around, being able to kill people who get on their nerves. I think this is a fantastic vision of England.
This is like your utopia.
This is my utopia, absolutely.
Welcome to James Dyer-land.
I am the law.
Do we want to just briefly talk about the Dunkirk trailer, which dropped just after the podcast last week?
Go for it.
Yes.
Because that's a thing, isn't it? Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. This is maybe the final big trailer that we saw.
You can tell from my blank expression I've not actually watched it yet.
Okay, good. Christopher Nolan is a man who likes to keep his cards close to his chest, as we know. So there's not much in this way of plot or story that we can garnish from this trailer.
Am I pushing the boat out, if you will, to say it involved a beach and some soldiers and some bombs?
Oh, so you have seen it then? Yeah. Yes. There's soldiers and there's a beach and there's planes and there's bombs and shooting and things. But it looks very nice. You've got a huge cast of famous people in there. Kenneth Branagh, Tom Hardy is in a plane. We've got Mark Rylance is in a boat doing his sort of his BFG Dunkirk rescuing, wibbly boatly. Whatever. There's a famous person called Harry Styles, who's I'm led to believe is some sort of popular music artiste.
Yes, I believe so.
He's in it as well. No, it looks amazing. I think it's going to be a big sort of summer blockbuster. Christopher Nolan's never done a straight war movie before, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
The scale of it just looks incredible. I'm interested in terms of the narrative arc because it's, Dunkirk as a battle isn't necessarily one with the most twists and turns and the kind of greatest arc from a storytelling perspective, but everything we've seen so far, and as you'd expect from a Christopher Nolan film, it looks astonishing, and the scale of it just looks incredible. And as you say, it's just absolutely kind of full to the brim of incredible actors and Harry Styles, who we are yet to see if he is an incredible actor. And I was talking to somebody about this in the pub the other night, and I'm trying to still get my head around the Harry Styles thing, right? Because this is Christopher Nolan. This is not a man who's going to put somebody in there to get a few extra bums on seats because he's got a huge following and psychotic 12-year-old girls follow him wherever he may lead, including to the pictures, one would presume. Which means I think he must have seen something special in him. He has to have done to cast him, because actually the kind of the debate around it and people like us who are po-faced film journalists going, Harry Styles from One Direction, would mean there's an element of risk, I think, attached to casting him in that role.
I think Occam's razor would tell us that if Chris Nolan has cast Harry Styles in his film, he's a massive fanboy. See, he comes across as a serious filmmaker, but in reality, he's bopping along to, and if I knew any One Direction song, I would drop the name of one
Something
in here.
about you thinking somebody's beautiful.
Not a clue. None. Absolutely none. I've never heard one of their songs. I couldn't pick one out of a lineup. But I reckon Christopher Nolan could.
Do you think?
I do.
Secret One Direction fan?
I want someone to be with him when his phone rings, and I wouldn't be surprised if his ringtone is one of them there hits.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
I mean, he does have children, right? He's got a teenage daughter who's just like persuaded him.
Yeah, let's go with
casting.
that.
From the trailer, you get the impression that it's not a main role, like it's a supporting role.
He moves his hair.
He's sort of like...
Yeah, he moves a tendril.
Yeah.
So I don't get the sense that it's not a significant role. I don't think he has a huge amount of screen time is what we hear.
He doesn't break into song at any point.
No.
It's not that sort of
Doesn't
film.
go into a musical. It doesn't go like a little bit South Pacific at any point. But we interviewed Harry Styles and pretty much everybody else from the cast of Dunkirk for the next issue of Empire, so you'll have to look out for it because I haven't read the article yet, but we will see what he says about being in a Christopher Nolan film.
Yes, we will. And I think that is news.
Yes.
Before we press on with this week's interview, a quick word from our sponsor. The podcast is brought to you by MCM Comic Con. This year's convention features a wide variety of events to suit fans of every stripe. There's a gaming zone where you'll find the Tekken 7 tournament final. There's cosplay, masquerades, Comic Village, Kids Zone, and much, much more. Exhibitors at this year's event include Universal, Warner Brothers, Sony PlayStation, Nintendo, and Bandai Namco. While special guests at the event include the likes of Donnie Yen, Vern Troyer, Billy Piper, Scott Adkins, Sam Jones and Lou Ferrigno. In addition to the main show, there are separate after-hours events, including a screening of Deadpool at the Prince Charles Cinema on the 25th. Terry will almost certainly be there. And a comic carnival party on the 27th, which fuses the worlds of carnival and cosplay. See what they did there? Anyway. That event will feature live performances, street food and craft beer. So do not wait. Hop online and order your tickets at mcmcomiccon.com. Now back to the show. I'll be honest, I'm bored of you both. So should we have a guest? Let's have a guest.
Sure.
Helen O'Hara attached herself to Danny McBride this week, impregnating him with her searching Alien Covenant questions until answers burst from the bloody ruin of his chest. Was that too far? That was too far, wasn't it?
Well, I'm aroused personally, but...
And by all accounts, so was he. Let's find out. Here's Helen and Danny McBride.
All right, well, welcome to the Empire Podcast. We're joined today by Danny McBride to talk about Alien Covenant. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me here.
You're very welcome indeed. So, Alien. I'm guessing you're a fan of the franchise. You seem like a guy who knows his genre stuff.
I am a humongous fan of the franchise, so I was stoked to be invited to participate in this universe. It's crazy.
It is awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, how were you asked? What was the situation?
I was invited to have a meeting with Ridley, and I wasn't really positive what the meeting was actually for. And so I showed up. And I started talking to him, and we were just talking about old movies, and, he was just kind of telling me some of his experiences. And then he pulled out this giant book of conceptual drawings of spaceships and spacesuits, and then there were also xenomorphs in there. And so as just a fan of his and of Alien in general, it was like, oh, my God, he's going to make another Alien film. And, oh, my God, he's talking to me about being in this. And so, it was mind-blowing. I couldn't believe it.
That's awesome. Did you have a bit of a pinch yourself kind of moment? Really?
All the time. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And then even when I got to the set, I still couldn't believe it. I showed up on the set, and the moment you walk onto the spaceship and you're seeing the set design and the consoles and the Weyland-Yutani symbol on the walls of the ship, it was mind-blowing, and I was just like, I need to take pictures of myself without getting kicked off the set of the movie here. And then I was like, well, if I don't get kicked off, people will just see me in here. They'll know that I was here, so I don't really need to take selfies on the set.
That is a moral dilemma nowadays, isn't it? Do I take a selfie on the set of my movie and risk getting thrown off my movie? Yeah, that's a real problem. I was going to ask actually about because I was on set. I got to visit last year, and it was proper. Like it's a hall full of giant alien heads. Like it's an actual bridge of a ship. It's a cargo bay full of pods full of people sleeping. Like it's a proper.
It really is. That was one thing that was amazing about this. I had no idea if we would be acting. This whole movie would be in front of a green screen. And no, Ridley creates a world where you interact with it. It's like we had these sets are massive. Everything you interact with is real. I mean, even so much so that he has like a contortionist dressed as the alien chasing you down the halls of the spaceship. And it's not like you're running from a tennis ball, like you're running from an alien. And it was scary, and it made it not hard to sort of get into the world.
That's amazing. What's it like to be chased by an actual alien?
It's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. I mean, that's what's so crazy about this movie is that, like, I rarely will even go see something I'm in because I just know that I am not going to invest in the movie the same way that someone who isn't involved with the movie would, and I just can't really like get past myself being in it. So I just like save myself the trouble. But with this film, it was crazy that after participating in it, like knowing exactly what's going to happen, I still found myself like turning away from the screen and jumping at parts. I mean, it was mind blowing.
That's awesome. You're a pilot, obviously, on the ship. I was talking to, is it Callie Hernandez, who's your co-pilot, and she was saying she had to work out what buttons did what for her own satisfaction and, like, type her name in so she'd look like she knew what she was typing and this kind of thing. Did you have a similar sort of system worked out of what did what on your console?
You do 100%. I mean, especially it's like, this is an ensemble, so, in a lot of the early scenes, you're in scenes with 10 people, and you have no idea when the camera's on you, when it's not, and you don't want to be an asshole who's just back there pushing the same button over and over again. So, yeah, you do kind of like work out, well, I'm imagining that this button here is thrusters and this button here. And then it was all about just like, I started just like watching how pilots operated and how calm they were when they would, flip these buttons. And so, because you also didn't want to like overact with the button pushing and just like, God, what is he avoiding? What's he dodging? Or why is he like messing with the console so much? And all the things you just get into your head about when you're doing something like this.
But you have a head start in looking cool as a pilot because you've got your cowboy hat.
Yeah. Ridley talked about that cowboy hat in the very first meeting. He said he wanted to be an homage to Slim Pickens' character in Doctor Strangelove, and so I love that film. So that was a very a cool thing to give a shout out to, I thought.
Is that Major King Kong?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And did you? And then you actually got a spacesuit as well. So what's the spacesuit experience? It looks incredibly uncomfortable.
It is incredibly uncomfortable. I didn't realize that I was claustrophobic until we did this film. At one point, I had to like get into a sleeping pod, and I wasn't thinking anything about it at all. I never imagined that being in one of those sleeping pods would ever be a big deal. And the first take, we just go in there, and I'm just all casual. I get into it. You lay down, and then boom, it seals over top of you. And like the glass that's sealing over you is literally like half an inch from your nose. You can't move at all, and you have no control of getting it back open. Like they have to open it up from out there. Ooh. So I'm in there, and then the scene's going on, and it's going on and going on, and I'm just like, how long is this fucking take going to be? And it was about 5 minutes, and then like they open it up, and I'm just like panting. I'm like, oh my God, how long do I have to do this every time I have to sit in this thing? And then I just heard Ridley be like, all right, we're ready for take number 2. And I just looked at Kath and just like, okay, yeah, I'm fine. Everything's okay. I'm going to go in here. And so I think that kind of spooked me out a little bit. So then when I got into this spacesuit, I mean, that thing is so confining. And once again, it's like you're sealed in this thing, and they tell you like, look, listen for the fan. If the fan goes out, you'll lose consciousness. Like that's how you're getting air. And you can't even get your hands around to open this thing up. So yeah, you're at the mercy of somebody else. So yeah, I was like, I could never be in outer space because I don't think I could like have a space helmet on for long periods of time. So I think I'm stuck on Earth.
That to be honest, from what I've seen in this series about space, it's safest.
It's
here.
safer to stay here.
Stay here.
Stay in your own backyard.
Yeah. Never ever explore.
Yeah. This is fine here.
And what about you mentioned the ensemble. What about the sort of the background to these characters? Did you guys have conversations among yourselves, like who's worked together before, who knows what?
Yeah, Ridley talked to us a little bit about that, about who had the deeper relationships. They had worked out that Amy Sema's character Ferris and myself that we were friends with Catherine's character and Franco's character before we had gone on this mission, and so you kind of knew who you were closer to. And then, everyone worked on their own, a little bit. And one thing that was cool with this film is that, they shot that supplemental footage, for the publicity of it. Like they had that Last Supper and those interviews. And, this film starts out with something very bad happening, and then it only gets worse from there on out. So it was nice to shoot those things where your character wasn't in a moment of danger, and you could actually have these, like, lighter moments. And it was cool. It just, like, gave you a chance to show your character in, like, I don't know, in a more diverse setting where it's not always just running away from an alien because you're about to be killed, but you can also just be bullshitting and talking, Yeah,
not survival mode the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Franco followed you to Alien, I guess. What's up with that?
Copycat. I was thrilled. I love Franco, and so I was thrilled to have him come out there. And we had been shooting for a few weeks before he came out, and so it was kind of like funny just to like he was there, and I'm like, yeah, this is the shit, man. This is like this over here is where I sit, like just showing him the ropes. It was cool.
That's awesome. I don't know. It just seems like an interesting group of people as well. Like they Ridley Scott's gone out there and found a diverse, interesting bunch of people that you're like, all right, yeah, I see this. This looks like a spaceship crew of the future. Yeah. That sort of makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that one concept of the script I thought was so cool reading it originally was just the idea that it's a colonization mission, so it's all couples on the ship, and that just adds another level to the fear of it, because it's it's one thing to be scared for your own safety, but if you're married and your partner is in a life or death situation, and there's something horrific happening to them, and you're absolutely helpless to do anything about it. I mean, that's almost as horrifying as being chased by a xenomorph. It just plays on these other fears as well.
So, I've got to ask, a bit more about your career in general. Obviously, you've been working a lot on TV recently, and this is a bit of a return to film for you in some way. I mean, you've been consistently working in film, but more in TV recently. Has this sort of kind of rekindled your love of the big screen a little bit?
I do love the big screen. I love movies, but honestly, like the environment in the big studio comedies, to me, just has gotten boring. It's like the process of what a comedy has to go through to actually reach an audience. It's just like a crapshoot. I mean, it's not like good comedies end up. If you make a good comedy, it equals, a successful weekend. It's, I think comedy is really tricky, and I think the best comedy is very specific. I think it has to be able to hit a specific, sensibility, and I think a lot of times, if you're trying to hit everyone, I just don't think the movies are as interesting. And I think that you have to do that in order to sort of be able to succeed in that marketplace. And I think with TV, you're able to be very specific with the comedy. And I think that you don't have to worry if everyone just shows up the first 2 days it's out.
Yeah.
People can find it at their own pace, and you're not judged by that. And so for me, I just feel like right now, I'm just not interested in much comedy that is in the movie theaters. I think that independent comedies are still cool, but I don't know. It's just a little soul-crushing. I mean, the idea that you have to make a film and then test it in front of an audience, and an audience in Burbank gets to decide for the rest of the country and the rest of the world whether your jokes are funny or not. It just, to me, seems like a completely backwards way to create something. And I think we started gravitating towards HBO because they weren't making us do any of that. We could do exactly what we wanted to, and the audiences could just decide where they liked it. We didn't have to jump it through any strange hoops. And to us, that just seemed a little pure and just more of a fun atmosphere. But I mean, I still love movies, and I love when a good comedy actually does make it. It's just very difficult to do that.
Yeah. What kind of things do you watch?
I watch TV mainly, and then in documentaries and horror films. That's sort of what I'll gravitate towards if I'm sitting on the couch and have to find something.
Now, you're working with Blumhouse on the Halloween remake.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are going to think that is sacrilege.
Yes.
What is your response to that?
I just feel like, look at us, where the Halloween franchise has gone. I think that we can, there's a lot of room for improvement. But I think, David and I are coming from it as we are horror fans, and we are humongous fans of John Carpenter and of what he did with the original Halloween. And so I think from watching this and being disappointed by other versions of this series, I think we're just trying to strip it down and just take it back to what was so good about the original. It was just very simple and just achieved that that level of horror that wasn't corny, and it wasn't turning Michael Myers into some supernatural being that couldn't be killed. That stuff to me isn't scary. I think I want to be scared by something that I really think could happen. I think it's much more horrifying to be scared by someone standing in the shadows while you're taking the trash out, as opposed to someone who can't be killed pursuing you.
Yeah.
And Blum had approached David about directing a new version of it, and so David came to me because he knew I was a fan of it and was like, "Would you want to help me crack this?" And so we worked for about 3 weeks on our take of what we would do, because we weren't even sure if we wanted to do it. We know I'm the same way. I'll be the first person to go online and bitch about someone rebooting something, and why are you doing this? And so for us, we were like, we have to make sure that this is something we actually would want to see, or else it's not worth doing. And so we came up with a take that we thought was cool, and then we actually went and pitched to John Carpenter, and we pitched to him, and he loved it. He was into it, and it was insane to have his seal of approval and to have him respond to where we were talking about taking Michael Myers next. And And I just think it's, if somebody's going to do it, I'd rather be the one doing it so I can make sure that it's good. But I'm not, we're not making it a comedy. It's not like we're taking this and we're going to try to like put some weird comedic spin on it. I'm not acting it or anything. I'm producing it and writing it with David. And we just want to get back to what was scary about the first Halloween.
Awesome. Is it a contemporary film or is it going to be?
It's contemporary, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Wow. And what's the Blumhouse environment like? Because obviously, they've had some incredible films recently, and they've
incredible.
Been doing
You know what, man? It's been really, really cool. They've been very supportive, and they give you a lot of creative freedom. And I think what their trick is that they keep those budgets so low that it allows you to be able to take risks and to do things that I think once the budgets of the films get higher, you can't be responsible and take risks when it comes to putting a lot of money in there. And I think that's honestly like what most of the problem is with movies these days. It's just that the budgets are so expensive that you suddenly can't take any risks. And I also think it doesn't force the filmmakers to be creative, because I think that when you are given limitations, you have to really think about what you're doing and how you're going to spend those resources. And I think that sometimes brings out some very cool ideas and things that are different.
Something Ridley Scott clearly does. I mean, on his films, shooting in such a compressed period of time, apart from anything else, you've got to be ready to go.
Yeah, you do.
That's awesome. One of my colleagues has insisted that I ask about Hot Rod. Do you often get asked to do the Hot Rod high five?
I do. That is a movie that I've been in a lot of movies that didn't make any money the weekend they opened, but then once they are on video or DVD or however you watch it, people seem to find it then. And Hot Rod is still a movie to this day that I definitely, people come up to me about it all the time, tell me that they like to party, tell me that that's how you do a high five. I think that movie is so funny. I think that those Low Leon guys are just incredible. They're so funny. But, they're a prime example. I mean, the idea that a movie like Popstar doesn't make a shitload of money at the box office, I don't know. For me, as a comedian, it just makes me feel like, well, what will work? I mean, that movie is so funny and so smart, and there's such a high level of creativity going on there. And the idea that people don't show up for that, it just kind of makes you feel like, why bother?
Well, that's a downer. But no, I know what you mean. It's a weird environment at the moment. It's a very, especially for comedy, it's a very strange environment.
I just think that comedy right now is better served on TV. It just really is. It just, you can be bold. And I think also if you're into fucked up comedy, I think people are more comfortable watching that stuff in the confines of their own home than being out in public and letting people see what they think is funny.
You're worried about being judged and what you're laughing at. Yeah, there is probably an element of that. That's true. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
You.
Cheers.
That was Alien Covenant, star Danny McBride, which means it must be time for reviews. Kicking off this week's lineup is John Madden's Miss Sloane. This one stars Jessica Chastain as a political lobbyist who quits her job to take on the NRA and fight for gun control, which always goes down very well in America. What do we think of this one, Terry?
So, let me begin by saying that the official Empire star rating for this film is 3 stars. My personal view differs somewhat from the official Empire view, but we will get into that. So, yes, as you say, Jessica Chastain is Elizabeth Sloane. She's a DC lobbyist who annoys her boss by essentially turning down a job for a pro-gun group. So she quits and she moves to a kind of a smaller, scrappy boutique firm, which is basically backing a proposed law to impose more restrictions on guns. And then, obviously, that kind of brings her into line with some feared enemies who essentially try and destroy her life and her career. Now, here's the thing with this film. It sounds incredibly dry, and that's because it basically is. So the script is incredibly dense. The dialogue is incredibly impenetrable. I kept kind of drifting off in the pictures when I definitely should have been paying attention. And at the heart of it, her character is meant to be this ball-breaking, tough lobbyist who all the men in Washington, D.C. feared, that she was a career woman who hadn't taken this move in terms of the firm to basically put in more restrictions for gun laws because she's fundamentally a good person, but because she's a careerist. So she paints this portrait at the heart of it as a hard-bitten career woman. And by doing that, it's basically she has no friends. She has no personal life. When she wants to get laid, she hires a male escort to some nondescript hotel and gets her leg over. So for me, it just deals in these kind of really awkward cliches and tropes about women in powerful positions, about personal sacrifice for professional gain. There is a bit where I literally thought she was going to do a Destiny's Child impression. It was like, right, everybody, I'm in a boardroom and I'm going to be a strong, independent woman. It was just, I personally felt it was very hackneyed.
Yeah.
And I found that the story in itself wasn't particularly compelling. There was some very good courtroom kind of drama moments, but fundamentally the arc didn't kind of pull me along. And Chastain, who I think is a remarkable actor, I think is incredibly wasted in this role. And I just kind of found it a little bit frustrating, a little bit deflating, and I wouldn't watch it again.
Wow.
In a nutshell.
And is it a well conveyed argument? Does it tell you a lot about the ins and outs of lobbying against the NRA,
No.
the difficulty of none of that? You learn nothing.
No, as I say, Chastain is great in everything, pretty much. I think the material isn't great. Do you know what? If you are in two quite dense courtroom dramas where they use a lot of long words that you probably don't understand, then you should definitely go and see this film. But the Empire Star rating is a 3-star rating, which is a recommendation.
It is.
But yeah, just for me, it didn't kind of have the narrative punch that you kind of want from it. It didn't deliver any real emotional blows in terms of revealing anything in particular about her as a woman, her character's kind of backstory, any kind of pathology in terms of how she ended up how she did. It kind of never got beyond trope and cliche. And so I found it quite disappointing. And there were probably missed opportunities to do that. You got a sense of there'd been some kind of events in her background that had developed her into this quite brittle, caustic character, and that actually underneath it all there was a nice human being, but you never really got that far from a narrative perspective. So that kind of thread was never fully fleshed out.
Okay. Well,
sorry.
If that sounds appealing, go and see it. If you're hoping to run into Terry, maybe watch something else. We gave that 3 stars. Next up is Jawbone. This is Thomas Napper's boxing drama. This sees Johnny Harris as a down-on-his-luck fighter who slips into the world of unlicensed fistfights, as I think we shall all be doing now that we work in Camden Town. John, what was this like?
Yes, so this is Johnny Harris sort of stepping out into his own turf. You might know him from, he's sort of skulked on the sidelines of a lot of British drama and TV and film. He worked in the This Is England series. And this is his first film as a screenwriter, and he's also stars. So he stars as Jimmy, who is this sort of former champion boxer who's down on his luck, as you say. He's alcoholic. He's about to be made homeless. He's really not in a good place. And so he turns to boxing to sort of bring himself back to a sense of normality. And I mean, you know, the boxing movie is a well-trodden path. We've seen this sort of boxing as redemption narrative played out quite a lot. But it's done really well here. It's done really well. I think there's a sort of gritty and brutal element to this film from director Thomas Napper, which makes it really interesting and fascinating to watch. It's not an easy watch sometimes. It can be really tricky. It can be really unpleasant. Johnny Harris himself is fantastic in the role. There's an amazing sort of sadness and vulnerability to him.
And is it Ray Winston's his trainer in this, I believe?
That's correct,
and
yes.
Ian McShane is the gangster.
That's right. I mean, you've got Ray Winston and Ian McShane in very Ray Winston-y and Ian McShane-y sort of roles. You know, Ray Winston taking time out of his betting adverts to play a sort of a gym owner who talks tough, but he's firm but fair. And then you've got Ian McShane, who's a bit more slightly dodgy, unlicensed boxing promoter. And Michael Smiley as well. It's so great to see him having the career that he has at the moment. He plays his personal trainer. And yeah, I mean, it's a dark film. There's no doubt about it. But there is also, it's also fascinating. And what sets it apart, perhaps, from a lot of boxing movies is it looks at addiction and it looks at sort of the underclass in society in quite an authentic and honest way, in a way that we perhaps haven't seen in boxing movies before. So it's definitely worth a watch.
Very good.
4 stars we gave it.
4 stars.
I
from
think
Empire.
Johnny Harris is such an underrated
He really is.
British actor. I mean, just him in This Is England, 86 particularly, which was the Channel 4 TV programme which accompanied the film. He is astonishing in that. The darkness in that. And stop laughing. James is laughing at me because any excuse to talk about This Is England or Shane Meadows.
For anyone who doesn't know Terry, This Is England to Terry is what Friends is to most other people.
Well, he is remarkable, and I was really excited to see him get this kind of role because I still think he's kind of on the edges in terms of a profile. And I think he's so incredibly talented, and he's just the real deal as an actor.
Yeah, and if there's any justice in the world, this will be the film that sort of propels him into the public consciousness a bit more, I think. So, fingers crossed.
Well, 4 stars for Jawbone. François Ozon's France is next on the list. This is a mystery set in the aftermath of World War I, and while I could tell you all about this, it suffices to say that it is A, in French, and B, Phil de Semlin gave it a hearty 4 stars. I'm not saying those two things are necessarily connected, but draw whatever conclusion for that you wish. I think we shall close with Alien Covenant. This is the 6th Alien film, or 8th if you include the Alien vs Predator films, which nobody should. Alien Covenant takes us aboard the USCSS Covenant, a colony ship en route to a new home on the arboreal world of Origai 6. Pulled off course to check out a rogue transmission, they stumble across Prometheus survivor Michael Fassbender, who's no longer a disembodied head, and an arseload of hostile organisms intent on killing them. Terry, you were a big fan of this one, weren't you?
So I really enjoyed this film, and I think I probably liked it a little bit more than the rest of the Empire office. So the official Empire review was 3 stars.
Yes.
I thought it was a 4-star film. It's not without flaws. I think everybody can acknowledge that there are certain storytelling flaws in this film. There is, the Michael Fassbender character, and I don't want to give any spoilers away here. There was a certain plausibility issue that I had with some of the plot devices and twists that you see on screen. But for me, it has the great bits in Alien and Aliens, the sheer terror, the thrills. I found that they were there in spades in this film from kind of the get-go. So what I loved is there wasn't much suspense. If you love your suspense in an Alien film, then this kind of isn't for you. What you get is full-blooded terror horror. You get aliens right from the get-go. I don't think that's spoiling anything to say that. And I loved there's a baby alien in there, which is pretty much out there and everybody's seen, which I absolutely loved.
Alien Groot.
I loved all of the aliens actually in the film. I loved the sheer terror in it. It scared me, I think, a lot more than it scared you, would be fair to say. I think visually it was absolutely stunning. And I actually loved the colonists who are going to populate the new planet. I actually loved the fact they were couples, and I know not everybody did, but I really liked the emotional texture that gave to the film. I think, Danny McBride is fantastic. I think Catherine Waterston, I really, really liked her. I think she's always going to suffer from the comparisons with Sigourney Weaver, and that's kind of a poison chalice, really.
Even while trying to copy her haircut.
Well, she didn't cut her own hair, did she?
Frankly, it looked like she might have done.
They're wearing the same vest in quite a lot of it. So I really love this film. As I say, it is not without flaws, but for me, it packed so many of the punches that I was missing in Prometheus that I think I forgave it quite a lot. And I really want to see it again. I really enjoyed the terror that I felt. And yeah, for me, a 4-star Alien film.
I did like it a bit less. If I'm honest, I preferred Prometheus. I preferred Prometheus. I thought Prometheus was an incredible mess. I thought it was a very ambitious mess. I think this film is far less ambitious, but also slightly less of a mess. My biggest problem with this is it felt like it was a retread. It felt like, we said before, like it's like a mixtape. Do you know what I mean? It felt like it was almost a reworking of Alien. There's the ship travelling, they're all asleep. There's a radio signal. They go and investigate it. They go down. And you're like, haven't I seen this before better? And there's a sequence in this film, and it's not a spoiler because it's in the trailer, as apparently is all of the film, but that's neither here nor there, where Billy Crudup, genius Billy Crudup, leans over an alien egg as it opens and peers inside. I'm sorry, but fuck off. That is a Darwin Award right there. At this point, what are you doing? And it's just, but even as a reader, a viewer, even as a viewer, you're watching that and it's just like, really? Really?
There are a few moments where you do sort of, your head clasps your head. Your
when
hand
John
clasps your
Hurt
head.
did that, you're like, oh, what could possibly happen?
Yeah.
At this point, you're just kind of rolling your eyes as he does something incredibly stupid.
One character at one point says, "I'm just going to go take a leak," and you think, well, I'm sure nothing bad will happen to him.
I mean, it's like you can imagine like Jamie Kennedy from Scream just doing off-camera commentary on everything that's happening, just slapping his head.
But I think I disagree with you, James. I think this is better than Prometheus. And interestingly, I think it also makes Prometheus retroactively better in a weird way. Like it sort of clarifies a few things and it updates a few things that makes that sort of chronology work a bit better.
No, it would absolutely do that.
Because it is a direct sequel to Prometheus.
Yes. And if it made sense in the context of Prometheus, you'd be absolutely right. It does. You're right. It does. It puts more clarity into Prometheus. And weirdly, I think that's one of the reasons I might not love it, because I love Prometheus as a piece of hard sci-fi, completely divorced from the Alien franchise. And by the very end of it, you can kind of take it as something independent. I don't think it works within the broader narrative of the Alien series. And for that reason, I don't think this does either. But this tries to be an Alien film, whereas Prometheus almost doesn't. And that's what I like about it. This film, to me, was... it didn't scare me at all. I didn't find there to be a lot of tension in it, which I found a little bit lacking. But I think my biggest problem with this... and it's no fault of... Well, actually, it is directly Ridley Scott's fault. And that's that the day after I saw this, I went and saw the 70mm print of the original Alien. And frankly, it's night and day. I mean, that is absolute genius from top to bottom. And I think that, if anything, shone a light on the deficiencies of this one for me.
But isn't that always going to be a fundamental problem, right?
Yes.
Because anything that is done within that franchise is going to hold up in an inferior way. I just think it is, and I think that has a certain context around it and has become iconic in a way that you struggle to see how a new Alien outing could. And it is a retread, but isn't it only a retread in so much as The Force Awakens is a retread of Empire Strikes Back? Do you know what I mean? Like, which you enjoyed, right?
Yeah, I think Force Awakens definitely does tick the Star Wars boxes quite heavily, and this does the same thing. This felt more of a... oh, you want an Alien film? Well, let's give you an Alien film type thing. And I don't know, this is the kind of thing, I don't want to say, it feels really weird to be criticising Ridley Scott. It makes me uncomfortable. But this feels like, and I'm not going to say it's a fan film because it doesn't feel like a fan film, but it feels that if a fan were filling out a questionnaire to the things they wanted to see in an Alien film, many of those things would be on this. And that sounds like a good thing on paper, and in some ways it is, but I think the best films are when... they take you somewhere you don't expect. Like Aliens, when you went into that, having seen that, you had no clue what you were in for. And I think that works better. That's what I would have preferred. That said, the set design was magnificent. So
no, it looks amazing. And I think, he's trying to do a lot with these movies, with Prometheus and Alien Covenant. There's obviously a grand philosophy. There's some religious metaphors. There's, Greek myths being invoked. It's all very sort of epic and lofty, and it doesn't quite work all the time, but I quite like that ambition. It's quite impressive, even if it is a sort of noble failure.
A noble failure.
3 stars, says Empire, which is a recommendation.
There is a certain segment I'm thinking of, which when people see the film will know exactly what I'm talking about, which is just incredibly... there is a whole character and a whole thread which is just incredibly pretentious. And I'm from a council estate, and I was rolling my eyes. That was the bit I was clasping my head and rolling my eyes, because I was like, I can't handle this. I can handle the blood and the gore and the scares and things erupting out of bodies. That's all well and good, but do not give me pretension, because that's what I struggle with.
You must have tittered at the line in it when he says, "Let me do the fingering."
Yes.
There are some great lines from Michael Fassbender.
Excellently pervy double entendres, which are entirely unintentional. But yes. So that's Alien Covenant. Let's not talk about it anymore, since there is indeed a special coming. You can hear a lot more, in fact, on Alien Covenant in the Epic Spoiler Special, which, all being well, will be available to download next week. I think we're recording it on Monday.
Yes, hopefully.
So by the time John gets off his arse and edits it, it'll be, midweek. And if you haven't listened to it yet, our Guardians of the Galaxy Spoiler Special is available to download as we speak. And with that, we're done. See? Whew. We don't need Hewitt to turn this show around. That's fucking triumphant, that was. That was the Empire Podcast with me, your reluctant host, James Dyer. Join us next week as we go all Cockney Camelot with Charlie Hunnam for Guy Ritchie's King Arthur. Legend of the fucking sword, innit? Until then, it's a grumpy goodbye from me. It's goodbye from John.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from Terry.
Bye.
That's it. I'm done. I quit!